Hey there today. I have my friend Brett Schklar joining us on AI at Work. Brett has recently published a book called AI Without the BS. The title pretty much says it all. And it's a playbook for actually getting things right. He's also the CEO of AI First Leadership and has a long, and I mean long, history as a fractional CMO and a leader of marketers, etc. He's a speaker globally, is constantly beating the drum about AI. And I'm really happy to have you on the show, Brett. Welcome.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate being here and looking forward to having a good dialogue with you and hopefully adding some good insights and ideas to the listeners that you have that join us on this journey.
Awesome. As you know, we try and be as practical as possible. And I'm sort of going to ambush you here a little bit off the
Yeah.
bat as far as like what are some of the most practical things that you're seeing mid-size organizations diving into with AI these days?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, the thing that I see is that marketing organizations are leaps and bounds ahead of most others when it comes to practical, real AI adoption. And Claude has been a great tool for that. Claude has been the system that sort of keeps the memory and keeps things isolated in projects, and has really given a lot of confidence to people in the companies that I talk to. So, one of the big things is that marketing is in the lead. One of the other things I'm seeing and kind of leading into that is I am beginning to see what I call the K-shaped adoption curve. So the people that have been starting to use and get messy and get their hands dirty with AI are adopting it and finding more ways to use it in their job and in the revenue generating job or the customer service job or the operations side of things. And the people who haven't are falling way behind. Literally, their productivity looks like it is slowing down because others are picking up. Those are a couple little nuggets right off the bat there.
So you were saying as we were warming up for the show that you just got back from Tennessee, right? And you were
Yep,
doing
yep.
a large workshop with a number of CEOs. What are some of the things that you heard them saying? So one is sort of the observation. I get what you're saying about the K shape, although that's interesting. It hurts me spatially a little bit to think about that. But the other is where's the pushback coming? What is the sort of feedback that you're getting from these folks? And can you also sort of help us understand who that audience was so we can translate
Yeah,
a little bit?
yeah. So I have been speaking to and working with primarily CEOs of mid-market companies that, let's just say, they aren't necessarily the technology companies. Technology companies don't really want a lot of help right now. They are very technically savvy and think of this as a technology problem to solve. The companies that I work with and the companies I talk to, and by the way, I started this journey about 2.5 years ago by implementing and deploying AI in my own business. And then because of what I did, other CEOs were looking to say, hey, what did you do and how did you do that? And what's your playbook and what's your cheat codes and all of these things. So this week, and I got back last night from Tennessee, was a workshop with a group of about 18 CEOs of mid-market companies, cross between oil and gas, manufacturing, operations, professional services. Now, it's important to say that I have done this type of workshop and have spoken with over 1,800 CEOs and business owners in the last 2 years. And boy, have I seen the conversations get better. I'll say that one of the first talks I gave at a workshop, it was in oil and gas country. And the guy that was hosting us, big time oil and gas guy with his cowboy boots, his cowboy hat, and we were sitting in his conference room, and he had his cowboy boots up on his own conference table folded. And I started talking about AI, and he said to me, and again, this is 2 years ago, so this feels like a lifetime ago. He says to me, if I ever see any of my employees using any of this generative AI crap, I'm going to give them a first time warning. Second time, they're fired. And this is 2 years ago. So then and we had a good talk. Luckily, a lot of this person's peers sort of went to him and said, you're an idiot. But let's fast forward, and so this week, the conversations I had were very different. And the question is, how do I try to push more of my employees to not be afraid of using AI? How do I turn the success stories into case studies so we can get people excited about it? How do I make it a mandate that you must be using some form of AI, otherwise your job will be eliminated. And then the questions are, what if I spend so much time training a certain model? We're using ChatGPT, but we hear all these things about Claude, or we're using Claude and we're hearing about Perplexity. And what do I do? I've got Copilot. I feel like I'm an abandoned, redheaded stepchild or something like that. So the questions are getting a lot more mature. And so the big conversation we went into during the workshop was, I'll call it fear of picking the wrong AI model horse. And this fear that if you are locked into a system, it'll be near impossible to take that knowledge and that insight out and put it into something else. Even though some of those capabilities are there, it's pretty hard. So that's, a good juxtaposition of what I was seeing like 2 years ago, which was like
Mhm.
pretty insane about the anti-AI movement, all the way to CEOs asking, should I mandate AI usage in the people where it could really impact their job?
Sure, we get the model horse question a lot ourselves. Where should we put our chips and where should we commit? And as we've talked about on the show previously, the models are all coalescing around sort of a standard feature set.
Yeah.
Around edge cases, one thing that you have to remind people, or we have to remind people, is that you might need multiple models. But if you're going to lean into one as a harness, at the moment, it's really kind of hard to go wrong between Anthropic versus GPT. I would quibble a little bit about Gemini, although it's certainly up and coming. The trick is to really learn the a platform, train your people about how to think about AI in general and how to use the tactics and tools in that platform, but also have enough flexibility in your approach such that if you need to do something that's out of that universe.
Uh-huh.
So the one that we always bump into is video and image. So
Yep.
if you're an Anthropic forward organization, great for you. It does a lot of things very well. Images don't happen to be one of them. So
Yeah.
you're going to need to use GPT, or you're going to need to use Gemini. Or if you do video, now you pretty much are going to need to use Gemini or some outside source. But people feel like they're committing to it in the same way that they commit to Microsoft versus Google or Beta versus VHS or whatever
Yep.
it is. And
Yep.
the fact is that's not really true. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm finding interesting, because, those of us who are using a lot of the different models, we tend to like to make fun of Microsoft Copilot. And we tend to, find challenges in being able to use Gemini inherently within the Google workspace. Here's what I'm finding. I actually think that and again, I work with mostly non-technology companies, and they are worried about governance. They're worried about data privacy. They're worried about information getting into the wrong hands of the wrong employees at the wrong time, at the wrong level. They're also worried about trying to, manage and control something that is outside of the existing ecosystem that a company is using. Now, the majority of the companies that I talk to and I work with, I'd say 70% are using Microsoft 365. And because of that, they are very likely to have much more comfort and much more chance of adoption by using Microsoft Copilot. Now, and let's not even talk about Apple and their Apple Intelligence very much, other than I think Apple and Microsoft are onto something. They're really trying to be the front end, and I think their goals are to be the front end interface so people can use AI within their systems, but be able to pick and choose which models on the back end.
Mhm.
I think Microsoft realizes it probably bet too much on ChatGPT, and now it's allowing Claude in to be the model, for certain levels and certain plans. And so I like the idea that and the lowest path of resistance and the highest chance of adoption for that 70% of the customers I work with that are using Microsoft 365 is just to start using Copilot, which inherently has them using ChatGPT on the back end and in some cases Claude. So that, as bad as that model is, and as hard as it is to keep up with the modern day things going on with the more pure LLM models, that's where companies have a lot more confidence. That's where their IT departments aren't pushing back. That's where their security groups are not saying, well, this is not sanctioned. If it's within Microsoft, it's more likely to be sanctioned than if it's not within Microsoft for that 70% of people. If it's within Google, and a lot of people are using, Google Workspace as well, Gemini just happens to be the one that's easiest to use that works within their own governance models. So I'm seeing a lot of that, and I'm seeing a lot of the CEOs and the business leaders, like the idea of using Copilot because it's already there and it's not a big lift for their employees to start using it.
So there is a lift there, though. Using Copilot isn't necessarily intuitive. What are you seeing people do in, a mid-market company? Maybe it's 50 people, maybe it's 200 people, sprinkling Copilot licenses across the organization and saying, you guys can use this and do stuff with it doesn't really help when people don't know how to do that. Just
Yep.
doing, having done Copilot automations in Outlook, even for me, it's not highly intuitive.
Yeah.
So what is the sort of literacy development that these companies are leaning into to bring their people along, or are they? Like, what does that continuum look like? What does sort of the median look like, and what do the standouts look like as far as what they're doing to bring their people up?
Yeah. So the good news, and we're talking about Copilot a little bit because you're right, it's not as intuitive as it should be, and it seems to be dispersed. And so if somebody's looking at, Copilot as the app itself, it's complicated. What I ask people to do to really get their feet wet and to dive in, because again, non-technology companies, people who have probably been doing their job for 10, 15, 25 years, they don't think they need an intelligence engine to support what they're doing. I ask them to go into the spreadsheet they usually use, or to go into the PowerPoint presentation they use, or the Word document they use, and start playing with Copilot on the side. Ask it to make enhancements as if you were going to ask somebody else to do it. And that's called prompting, right? Asking it to do something. And so I have to start very basic, in these workshops that I do to get them thinking about this. The second thing that I do is we have a center of excellence or a steering committee that's formed to get people to understand how people are using it, to go throughout the organization and see how different departments are using it. So a focus on HR for a month, a focus on marketing for a month, a focus on finance for a month, then a focus on operations for a month. And you try to hit all of them over different times. The third thing that I see, and you've seen this, and I think you probably talked about a bit in this podcast, is MIT came out with a study that said 95% of all AI pilots fail. And a lot of that is because people are swinging for the fences pretty big. My goal is to teach people how to find the 1% of problems in their workflow, in their day, in their life, and say, what can AI do to help solve that one little thing that is a thorn in my side? One little thing that is a fly in my soup. And by doing that and saying each week you focus on a small thing, within 6 months, you actually have these 1% changes each week. By the end of 6 months, you got 68% productivity gain. So I try to help people find those little things that are a pain in their butt, and then to find a way to eliminate that with some tiny bit of prompt or some tiny bit of AI agent automation. And then when I find here's the other thing that I find: some people are going to get it and enjoy it and double down and want to research on their own, and others are going to want to resist it. And there's not a lot that I am going to do about helping somebody get over their resistance, unfortunately. But they are going to fall way behind within the next 12 to 18 months when other people are starting to use AI to find those little 1% areas each week to get a little bit better.
Interesting. We internally talk about what we call the pyramid of suck, which is just a three-level pyramid, and at the top are business changing things, and that's what everybody wants to do. They want to completely
Yeah.
transform their business, and in the middle are amplifications like process improvements and whatever it is, and at the bottom are simply things that people don't like to do. And
Right.
if you need to get momentum going, solving things that suck for people gets their enthusiasm way up, where the sort of distance of some like enterprising changing initiative where it's really hard for rank employee and file employees to see doesn't really get them very enthusiastic. But I'll push a little bit there because it sounds
Yeah.
like your approach is to build a center of excellence in the organization, which is great. That makes a lot of sense. But then it's taking a lot of direct hand holding and workshopping across different business units.
Yeah.
which is very, very hard to scale. And the materials that, Microsoft recognizes this, all of the platforms recognize this, but the tools are changing like every 15 minutes. So it can be hard for an L&D department or whoever that center of excellence is to equip people with like the basics at scale. Like what is
Yeah.
the kind of the coolest approach that you've seen that isn't dependent on 25 people in a workshop at a time? How do you scale education in a way that gets people moving?
So one of the companies I work with is a $3 billion software company. So that sort of flies in the face of my non-tech people. But I happen to know somebody. They were at one of my workshops. They went and joined this $3 billion software company who was flailing at getting, in their software and in the software development, they've been using AI since before, our ChatGPT moment, a couple of years ago. But for the rest of the organization, they're having a hard time getting people to adopt AI. And so again, there's a $3 billion software company based in the UK that has worldwide presence, and they are investing a ton in training. They are investing a ton into weekly webinars. They are investing a ton into weekly Ask Me Anything sessions. They are giving people prizes for solving problems using AI and showing the case study that's happening. What I'm seeing in these organizations, and that's an outlier, that's a very big company. Most of the companies I work with are you know, tens to maybe a few $100 million in work. What I am seeing is the problem I'm seeing. You've got CEOs and leadership teams saying, we want people using AI. We want to find a way to have a better playbook or roadmap or structure to deploy it. There's the meme that I'm sure you've seen about 100 times. And it's a group of CEOs and it's like, we want AI. And then somebody asks, the CEOs say, we want AI. And then somebody says, why do you want it? And the CEO say, we don't know. And then somebody says, when do you want it? It says, we want it now. Well, that's kind of the phenomenon. But what's happening is the senior teams are pushing for AI. The younger and newer people are actually using AI really well to solve problems and to be 2 to 3 times more productive than others. It's the people in the middle, the senior managers and the directors. I call it the frozen middle. And they have the highest level of resistance, but they have the highest potential to really change the game. So I assume every organization we go into to do some coaching or to run a workshop, it's the middle managers that are causing the lag and the delay of adoption of AI. So that's where I recommend to put a lot more attention and to do a lot more one-on-ones initially to get them over the hump.
Okay, makes sense. It's tough though. It's not like organizations have a lot of people internally who can do this stuff. And as much as it's great for our businesses to be able to provide that, like it's not really a sustainable model to outsource all of this indefinitely, right? And I guess I'm curious what you've seen as far as internal capacity development. Again, by all means, keep us engaged for a long period of time. But what have you seen as far as the steps of developing internal capacity, not just from a training perspective, but in
Yeah.
in general? We're sort of mid stride with a lot of this,
Mhm.
and the idea is to eventually hand the keys over and exit, and the flywheel starts turning. So I have some thoughts myself, but I'm curious what you're seeing in that respect as far as developing that internal capacity.
I came up with the idea of AI without the BS because my name is Brett Sklar. And my idea was to get people empowered so that their flywheel, and I like your analogy there of the flywheel, their flywheel can start spinning up and then they would not need any more BS, right? Do their own AI without the BS. Here's what's happening. And I think we're going to continue to be needed and be very necessary in the world, Kevin, because I think what you're doing is getting the confidence that people need, and I am doing a lot of work to get the confidence that people need. But the tools need to be able to catch up. So, and I listened to one of your earlier podcasts, and there's this idea that AI can get us to the 80 to 85% completion mark, and then it starts to become very frustrating to get us 100% mark, and then you kind of say, you know what, AI, screw you. I'm taking it over and I'm going to finish this job. And we see that with a lot of systems, a lot of tools. And we're getting better at prompting. Some of our prompts are getting to be multiple pages or many hundreds of words instead of short sentences. As the memory continues to expand and we're training our AI models even better, they're getting better. But we're still dependent upon the tools that are not getting us to the finish line. And because of that, the work that you and your team do and me and my team do is going to be necessary for a while. Now, there are some tools that are doing a good job of sort of taking it to the finish line, and that is the AI baked into existing software applications. So CRMs, ERPs, marketing automation platforms, all of these systems are really doing a good job of utilizing AI so it enhances or speeds up the workflow instead of trying to replace things. But when we're using AI on our own with our own tools, Claude or Perplexity or Gemini or Chat or Grok, or even DeepSeek has its place in certain environments. I am hoping people try to overcome that frustration of getting to the 80 to 85% completion mark, and then things start to go backwards, especially when updates to models happen. And it seems like sometimes things get a little bit less smart. They get dumber, and then we have to sort of start all over with a couple of things. That frustrates people. So, unfortunately, I think that we're going to need the cheerleaders of AI, which we kind of feel like, and I don't know about you, but I feel like I feel like I'm selling a lot of AI without getting any compensation from these AI companies, and it's both fun and annoying. But then I also get like I'm the complaint department when things aren't getting to the 100% mark as easily. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah. So, as far as capacity building, what we do the whole picture. We run fractional AI offices. We go in and develop strategy and workflows and the centers of excellence. Some of the vocabulary is different, but very similar. But our core program is designed to level people up in the middle of the organization with
Hmm.
high touch projects that are designed to have ROI focused outputs. Like, ooh, how
Yeah.
consultants speak is that, right? And they're great. They're absolutely great. But what we find is that you level people up with the art of the possible, and then the bureaucracy of the organization is often such that they can't really go much further. Even one of my most aggressive clients, which is a multi-billion-dollar international company, and they're all in, and they've been working with us for years, and it's great. But institutionally, they don't really want to give people keys to the castle, and it makes sense. You don't really want to give Sally in accounting the ability to get into your ERP system and start like dinking around with it. Like that's a
Yeah.
really bad idea. So that they end up hitting a bit of a wall. And the way that we're addressing it is that people start graduating from our programs into what we call champions programs. So again, I
Okay.
don't want to get into the marketing speak so much, but we call the base program the ambassadors program. So these are people who are bright points of light selected from across the organization such that each department has people who have a higher level of skill than your average bear. So their colleagues can turn to them and they can ideate together and they can start solving problems. And whoever the division head is knows that he has these people who
Hmm.
are certified ambassadors. The next level of it are the champions. And the champions are the people who are given more freedom to move, and they will be given perhaps still small keys, but they will be given more keys and more tools in a sandbox type environment such that they can advance their skills. And what we see is those are the people who get stolen from their current job. And all of a sudden they get sucked into the broader AI apparatus, and they're running around doing process engineering or whatever it is, but they're the most curious. They have really interesting ideas, but curiosity and ideas only get you so far. So then you have to create an environment of experimentation, which that is my bet on how you teach the man to fish, as it
Yeah.
were, is that these champions in the organization will be tomorrow's trainers and leaders and visionaries that will help pull the company forward, supported by the ambassador type people. And in organizations that are embracing this to this degree, people who aren't an ambassador and aren't a champion better get with the program of using the things that the ambassadors and the champions are starting to put together. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem.
So I love your framework, right, of the ambassador, the champions, and sort of people graduate up. I've done something somewhat similar. So one of the chapters in my book talks about how to level up the AIQ of your people. And a business is only as good as the person with the lowest AIQ. So you've got IQ, right? And the intellect quotient. And the thing that's changing and the thing that where I help CEOs sort of see the light is intelligence is becoming a commodity. Intelligence is now bought by the token, and intelligence can be overbought by token maxing. I know that that's something that you've talked about before. And if IQ is a commodity and it's paid by the token, then one of the most important traits is EQ, the emotional intelligence that goes along with the IQ. The people who have more awareness, that have more ability to work across the organization, are going to take things further with AI, and it's going to lead to a higher AIQ for a person. So when I think we've got very similar models, problems, and showing the business case of what they did, like what was it before, what did they do, and what's the impact, and how did it change things? We bring them up into a closer level of the circle of the center of excellence. And there's a small handful of people in the middle of that circle. And then there are people that are in the middle circle, and then most people are in the outer circle. And so I think seeing things very, very similarly. But I think one of the big things, and I honestly am working to figure out a better way to embrace this within our engagements with clients, but it is, how do we help measure and raise that AIQ and get people more? And honestly, the thing that I see with companies adopting things better is when people are incredibly vulnerable and they're like, I don't understand this. Help me understand this. And then another employee comes and helps explain it before I even get a chance to get on the next, weekly Ask Me Anything session. And that's what I love to see, is when people are helping each other out and people are being very transparent about what they don't know. And so my work with CEOs and with the senior leadership teams is helping identify that there's a lot that we don't know. And so therefore we have a lot of opportunity to really help each other learn. And the more we learn, the better we are, right? And so knowing what you don't know is kind of a step one.
Okay. As far as ROI, return on investment of projects, where are you seeing the most assailable hits right now? Again, go back to the pyramid of
Yep.
suck, or
Yep.
your different levels of application. Like, okay, there are very smart people in a lot of these organizations that are focused on product, or they're focused on like reinvention. But where are where's the sort of low hanging fruit in most organizations as far as ROI forward activations?
Yeah. So it's something I call ROAI, and I track this. And I've got 1,800 data points that I've been tracking for about 2 years now. And so I look at it by departments. And so if we talk about looking at it from when I started working with companies about 2 years ago, specifically on AI, marketing organizations have about 2.3 times as much productivity as they did before utilizing generative AI across the board. 2.3 times more productivity than they did before AI really came onto the scene. So number one is marketing. And honestly, that is one of the places that I pull from when helping build a center of excellence or a steering committee, is because they've been using it a little bit more, and they've been building content, and they've been building all the emails and all that stuff using AI for a long time. So they have more confidence in it than other departments. The number two, best utilized or most adopted for the best return on AI is sales, using it for things such as drafting the emails, saving a lot of time, prioritizing your day based on who to reach out to. The companies that are in the business of RFPs, the response, request for proposals, using AI to help build and prioritize RFPs can take things from a 6-week project to a 2 or 3 day project. And so we're seeing huge gains there in the sales team. Third area is customer service, customer success, customer engagement. where people a lot of times tend to want to, interact with an AI agent to get an answer quickly, as opposed to going through a lot of voice prompts to get to someone or go through a random knowledge base to have to go and search for finding answers. So those are the three areas, tracking. We've got 2.3x on the marketing side, we've got 1.8x on the sales side, and we've got about 1.35 to 1.4%. I think it's going to move up on the customer service side.
So, we both have marketing backgrounds, so I'm going to push back
Yeah.
kind of hard on
Yep.
the marketing productivity. So, more blogs equals more better, more content equals more better. Like you're going to have to convince me
Yep.
that more productivity matters, and then the related question is going to be, what hath we wrought?
Yeah.
As we're heading forward into the slopification era of the internet. This show, we've talked about the dead internet phenomenon in the future, where basically already more than half of internet traffic is bot based, and if it's your bot that's looking at my bot and my bot's output and your bot is processing it, it's basically a tautology where
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
not a lot of value. Marketing often gets accused of not being able to pin itself onto ROI. So, what
So
is the ROI of productivity?
I love that question. And I love that you're diving into that. And so the way that I look at it is I'm not assuming and I'm not telling people that they should be pumping out three times, four times, five times as much content, or they should be pumping out a lot more marketing things. It's the cost of doing what they're doing today that's completely being reduced. So, give you an example. One of the first things that we do when we work with a company is we say, okay, who are your vendors? Who are your third parties that are charging you money? And if it's, let's say, for example, an SEO company and the pricing hasn't changed in 3 years, well, SEO has changed a lot. So if you still want them to do SEO and you obviously want them to do, GEO or AEO, the chatbot search capability, their systems and their processes are a lot more efficient than they were before. So you should be negotiating with those companies for a lower rate, because if they're saving a lot of money, they should be passing those savings on to you. It also used to take 2 months and many hours to do customer case studies. Now it is an interview with an AI chatbot that is listening in. They can write 75% of it before a human reviews it. A human must always review it. It is building marketing assets. And instead of having to find a lot of graphic designers and a team of people and a web developer, you can now do all this stuff at 1/3 of the cost, if not even less cost. So for me, the goal isn't to produce a lot more stuff, which inevitably winds into slop and inevitably winds up into, there's a scene at the end of Silicon Valley, the TV show, where one of the bots was talking to another bot on the Slack channel, and it sort of caused like, a holy war. Well, that's not my goal. My goal is, let's track the cost of the things that you're doing, and we should be able to reduce those costs by 2.3x. That's where I'm looking. I'm not looking to throw out more spaghetti on the wall. I'm looking to make the spaghetti that's already being thrown on the wall more efficient. And hopefully humans have more time to make sure that that content or those emails or those outreaches are more quality versus just throwing things out.
So, I will say that marketing has never been harder than it is right now. That the fact that we can all produce things faster, cheaper, better, even if you have good intent, even if you have humans in the loop, distribution of that with the scarcest resource, which is the time and attention of your possible customers as they're being deluged by the cleverest of clever out there. I want you to play this forward 3 years. Put your CMO hat on a little bit. And again, don't get me wrong. These are good places to
Yep.
invest. Like, you're
Yep.
crazy not to be investing in exactly the things we talked about, but you're almost building on sand in that now everybody's RFPs are perfect. They're personalized. They turn around in 15 seconds and they're right what the customer needs. But so do all the other guys. And
Mhm.
if you're not one of those other guys, you're not in the considered set at all. But there's still going to be survivors. And the amplification of all of that is really hard. I don't know if you've taken a look at, email open rates and like response rates. It's completely in the toilet. LinkedIn is a nightmare. Like, all of these channels are so hard,
Yeah.
and it's only going to get harder And I'm not even going to say slop. Forget the slop. Like good human oriented, personalized content from every angle, hitting every prospect in every way. What does that look like in 3 years?
So I'll tell you something that I'm doing with a company because we said we have an opportunity with a marketing organization to to go back to basics, to go back to the fundamentals and fix a lot of things. So we said, what do we want marketing to be able to do? Drive awareness and be able to measure it, drive comfort in what that company is doing and be able to measure it, and track conversions that come from marketing activities. So what's funny is we actually dialed it back. We went from doing a newsletter a week to one newsletter a month. We went from doing, some type of content asset every day to doing two a week. And what we would do was we would push something out and we would measure it and not just see how many people liked it or reposted it or made a comment on it. It was who was looking at it, who was responding and who was doing the engagement on those things. And because we're able to do things 3 times more efficiently, and we decided we're not going to take that to try to do more, but we're going to do it smarter. And we have AI to be now our data scientist to give us the feedback that we pump into it. Less is more. So that means the email engagement rates, the email response rates have gone up because less is more. The content engagement didn't go up, but the content engagement with the target audience is 3 times larger. The sales activities of feedback from the salespeople as far as marketing going like, what the hell are you doing, are now getting leads from engagement that's being tracked through retargeting systems and ABM or account-based marketing, capabilities. So I'm finding less is more. And in this one case, it's probably not always the case, but doing less and measuring everything and making sure it's targeted using AI to help with the intelligence of that and using AI as the feedback mechanism for that has really gone a long way.
I would quibble that that's going to be particularly sustainable when everybody can do these personalized messages, but we're going to
Yeah.
see. We're going to see what marketing has never been in a more interesting place
But
than it
Kevin,
is right now.
I mean, I can't agree with you more that, and, whether you call it slop or whatever else, it is what I call marketing on autopilot, which is a disaster. It's trying to let the agents and the engines do a lot of the lifting and the heavy lifting so that you don't have to, but you can't take humans out of the loop in this. You got to say, and this is where, I spend a lot of my time reminding people there's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. There's a difference between intelligence and judgment. Intelligence is now a commodity. It's by the token. Wisdom, knowing what to do with that, is really where humans, I think, are going to have a lot more play. Now, 3 years from now, I don't, it's interesting. I think social media is going to be a very different thing 3 years from now. And I think that there's going to be a big backlash on the concept of social media. We're seeing a rise in Reddit. We're seeing a rise in Substack. And we're seeing that the AI engines are pulling less from LinkedIn and less from Facebook and more from, Reddit and Substack and places where people are trying to put a lot of intentional thought into content. So I think things will change, but the slop is going to get worse before it gets better.
So some places where we definitely align are one is about measurement. And measurement has always been a challenge in even marketing driven organizations because measurement is sort of what you make of it. And being able to connect the dots up until very recently has been really laborious. So, as
Yep.
far as really actionable takeaways for people who might be listening, know that it's pretty much trivial at this point to build yourself your own little dashboard that you vibe coded together without like getting crazy about it, by the way, without
Yep.
like, oh, we're going to spend all this money and all this time or whatever. No, you know where your sources are. You know where your ad traffic is coming from Meta. You know your analytics coming from Google. You have site metrics that are coming from wherever they're coming from, and bringing that all together in a way that you can not only see it, but you can also make it much more proactive. So most leaders spend most of their time picking up rocks and looking under them and
Mhm.
seeing if there's anything nasty. Now, the opportunities and the problems can come to you proactively in a way that you can see it. So, but for listeners, if you haven't already done this, this is something that you should do. If you're looking for like pretty straightforward, easy weekend projects, like this is a great one. Like, how do I
Yep.
get my marketing dashboard together? The other part that you touched on a little bit is I think that marketing and sales need to be closer together. I have a direct consumer, high velocity sort of marketing background. It would never occur to a direct to consumer marketer to separate sales and marketing. Often there would be like a brand marketing layer or something like that, but you don't think about it that way. Like your
Yeah.
marketing needs to translate into that eventual sale. And if you're selling a widget, like it's relatively straightforward to connect the two. But for some reason, business to business organizations tend to treat marketing and sales as two different things. And so, in business to business, you talk about ABM, account
Right.
based marketing. And the future is whether you're big or small, every customer becomes an account that you're marketing to precisely. And every customer account is something that can translate from your marketing funnels into your sales funnels because you need all of that collected data and all of that information to enrich those records such that you can create the richest environment possible to break through some of this noise. So it's not
Mhm.
just about like measurement and, okay, cool, we can see marketing and sales being linked. My point is that your marketing signals become your sales information signals that allow you to create that ABM structure and then execute and be able to cut through the noise.
I love that, that comparison, that analysis. I did a lot of direct to consumer. I actually had an Amazon business where we sold a lot of things. I went to China to do some sourcing and supplying and brought it in and built a business, and we actually sold that to a private equity firm. We did all the marketing, we did all the sales, and I agree that marketing and sales is really one big route to revenue, one big go-to-market motion. Business to business, everybody's got a kingdom. Everybody's got their palace, their own little, turf. And so I couldn't agree more that they should be aligned. So we don't need terms like account-based marketing because that is a very like, it's like whoever came up with that is like, bless your heart. But I think we can get there with the tools that we have in place. We just have to get there with the humans to realize that there's some efficiencies lost when we think about the marketing motion and the sales motion as two different things. Humans in the loop are all, the technology can do everything for you. The AI can, the AI systems and AI agents can do a ton to bring marketing and sales together. We, as, somebody's going to say, a smart person at a large software company is going to say, why did we ever treat marketing and sales as two different things? And then this person will be, the next great creator of, of some great, model that Harvard Business Review will do analyses on for years to come. And then here you and I have been talking about that, saying, yes, it should be one big motion, but we're just not there yet because of humans.
Well, marketers are going to market. That's
Yeah.
just the way of it. And even things like what is the right term for AEO or GEO? Like
Yeah.
we marketers haven't yet figured it out. So as we kind of get to the top of the hour here, a couple of not lightning round questions, but our audience is their owners, their operators, they're people who want to get their hands dirty. Often they're too busy to do it. I just
Uh-huh.
tossed down a little bit of a gauntlet as far as a weekend project, as far as either you yourself build your marketing dashboard or you have somebody on your team build a marketing dashboard and say, hey, this guy Kevin told me you can do it really quick, so off you go, have fun with that. What would be a gauntlet that you would toss down from a geek perspective, as far as a way that any listener, if they haven't done it yet, would be a cool project for them to
Yeah.
do?
So, one of the things we just did, so on my fractional CMO business, we've got 30 fractional CMOs, and I'm trying to find triangulations of trends and activities across all of our clients. So, and we have our AI assistants join us for every call, whether it's Copilot or it's, you know, Plod for in-person stuff, PLAUD, the little devices, or we use other systems and tools. And so I built an agent that actually pulls those in at the end of every day, analyzes what's the trends taking place or what are the questions taking place with our customers, and gives me a report once a week that shows here's what's the biggest questions and the biggest things and the biggest challenges. So I now have this broad view across about 56 different companies of what's on their minds and what are they talking with our fractional CMOs about. And so I'm excited. It's just something we put together in the last couple of days. I am excited about that because it's going to give me that wisdom of the conversations with a lot of different people, and I could start finding trends that I can turn into really good, valuable content asset pieces that I can put out there to let people know what's on the minds of other CEOs or operators of mid-sized businesses.
So I'm going to paint by numbers for the audience a little bit on how you would actually do this, because to do this right at scale is actually remarkably complicated. To do it in a way that's meaningful on a day-to-day basis is less complicated. So what Brett is describing as far as being able to look over all of those different accounts and all of those different transcripts, that's going to involve graph rag, and it's going to involve a lot of pretty complicated bits and pieces. But if tomorrow in a 5-person organization, you know that there are 15 meetings tomorrow, all you really need to do as far as the building blocks is go from Otter or Firefly or Granola or whatever it is to do your recordings and have that as a repository. And if you are in OpenAI world, you're going to just go to its new agent functionality, and you're going to connect that destination. So you just click on agents and create a new agent, and you tell it what its job is. Your job is to look over all of these transcripts from yesterday, give me insights, give me directional information, etc. If you're operating in Gemini, you're going to create a gem that's going to do something similar to that. And if you're in Anthropic land, you're going to use Cowork to do that. And okay, so you still don't know what you're doing, even though Kevin just gave you some paint by numbers. So the like super basic weekend project is actually to build your own little AI help desk. And that you could even take a transcript of this call and what I just described, and your own AI help desk has one key phrase in its prompt, which is use search to determine the best way of doing this thing given my existing tech stack of, be it Claude, be it Cowork, be it Gemini, being whatever it is. Walk me through it step by step. It
Yeah.
seems totally silly, but everybody should have their own little Claude or GPT help desk, because you don't necessarily have Brett or me on speed dial, although some people do, that to answer these questions, right?
Yeah.
So you have a challenge, that's a good throwdown, and then you can iterate from there. So I get yesterday's, and now use your own, chatbot help desk to help you figure out how you're going to go from yesterday's analysis to client level analysis to bigger analysis. Just trust me that you're going to start stumbling into some things that are pretty complicated pretty quickly in that
Yeah.
description.
Yeah, it can get a little bit, there's a lot of tie-ins together of systems, and whether it's, using things like Zapier that tries to make things super simple to connect dots, or using one of the native connectors with some of the, with one of the generative AI systems or some others, it can get really complicated. There's no question about it. Then you also have to get really good about the questions you ask this new knowledge base that you have. So there's a lot, but it's a start, and then we continue to iterate and we continue to figure out. But you're on a really big point, Kevin. And one of the things where I see organizations, when I sort of know that they're ready to get to that next level, it is when people within the organization are saying, I didn't know how to do this, and so I went ahead and asked, ChatGPT, or I asked Claude to tell me how to do it, and it told me how to do it. That's when I feel like people are getting into that self-learning, into that flywheel a little bit more, when they're asking the systems that do the work to tell them how to do or solve a problem that they have.
We're not going to be able to get into it, but it is important to say use search, because it's pulling contemporary information as
Yeah,
opposed to information that goes back before the model training cutoff and et cetera. Don't need
yeah,
to do that divergence, but that's an important part of that prompt. And I mean, I'm pretty technical and I'm pretty good at this. And I absolutely have a Claude Code help desk that I have worked with over many, many months, such that it understands the way I think. It understands some of the weaknesses that I have. And I swear, one of the most important skills in vibe coding or workflow development is actually cutting and pasting. Being able to take a screenshot of whatever this crazy error is and feeding it into the chatbot on the other side.
all
Like,
of our downloads folders, because that's the thing, is like we are now so dependent on our downloads folder more than I ever have been before, because of that copying and pasting, screen capturing, uploading it, all those things. My download in the last 2 years, my downloads folder went from a place that I would like empty out every once in a while to now it's like the most valuable resource that I now make sure is connected to the cloud, so I don't lose things, because that downloads folder is huge.
I have to laugh because I have a daily automation that runs at 9 p.m. every day, and it goes into my downloads folder and it organizes things.
Nice.
So so that I can pretty easily purge it when I need to, if it's a video or it's a PDF or it's a markdown file or whatever it is. But it gives you a sense, dear listener, of just how much information gets dumped in there in a given day as just an easy holding place, such that I actually have to organize it every single day, or else it's going to drive me to distraction. All right.
Yep.
So the other closing question is, what is the tool you couldn't live without?
Man, tough one. I would say right now, and it's changed quite a bit, but right now, keep in mind that I work across a lot of different models. I have several businesses, and there's a lot of connections across all of these things. I have found more value in Zapier to help me stay organized and to make sure that knowledge bases are not stuck in one place. And for those that don't know, Zapier is this, system in the cloud that connects all these different cloud systems, and it does a lot of automations. And I have been doing a ton of work within Zapier to really automate a lot of things and to take some of the work that my agents are doing and keep things organized. And so I've been leaning on that. The second thing, and I know you asked me for one, but the second thing is we use Monday.com as our project management system. And I have been very impressed with the AI agents built into Monday. And it's a lot of fun to play with them. You truly give them like a humanoid avatar with a name and a function. And this person is the vice president of research. And using it to help research new prospects and new opportunities has been a lot of fun. So that's the second one that I don't depend on as much, but I'm really enjoying getting messy with is the Monday.com's agent capabilities.
Great. Yeah, it is the presence of a project management platform, be it Monday, be it ClickUp, be it Asana, be it whatever it is. Even if you're a really small business, a pro tip is that these platforms are really well structured for LLMs to access.
Yep.
So have one, because you can keep track of things in a really organized way and then call into it from whatever your LLM is of choice for updates and connections. But having that structural glue in place is really valuable.
Yep.
All right, Brett, this has been awesome. I guess tell us a little bit more of how to get in touch with you and where to find your book. I'm looking forward to reading it when I get the copy. And yeah, let's go from there.
Sounds good. So the best way to get a hold of me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Brett Schklar. You can also find me, our website is aifirstleadership.com. And then from there, you can sort of learn a lot or follow my Substack that I've got that goes out about once a week. And then, various places where I like to go and be a guest or be a host on a podcast. So those are the easiest places to find me.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to send us a question to answer on the show, email me at elijah@spark6.com. That is SPARK, the number 6.com, or Kevin@ascendlabs.ai. To learn more about AI strategy and training for your business, visit Kevin's company, Ascend AI Labs, at ascendlabs.ai. And to learn more about design and development of custom AI solutions, visit my agency at spark6.com. You can also sign up for my free newsletter, AI Framework Friday, by visiting spark6.com/newsletter.